public comment. Henry School Board welcomes public comment. According to policy 903, we remind everyone of the following. Public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the board. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and note their name and municipality. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer rather than to an individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. A speaker may speak once during each comment period. Please note that these sessions are designated for comments to protect the confidentiality and privacy rights of all members of our community. The board encourages members of the public to direct any comments regarding particular individuals, such as students or district employees, privately to the superintendent or other appropriate administrators or board members, or to communicate with the board and superintendent privately by sending an email to psdschoolboard@penridge.org. Questions raised and not addressed may be followed up at a later time. Okay. We're going to start with the music department trip to Disney. We're going to take over the Key Club right now on our agenda until Mrs. Hoffman arrives.
Okay, so this first trip, for those that may remember, I don't think we've had a big music trip like this since 2017. And at that time, it was marching band, jazz band, drumline, color guard. It was really all the band groups that were on this trip. And actually, Mr. Fair is the one that ran that trip. That was right when he was coming in. It was something that Mr. Benson had kind of got the wheels rolling, and then Kevin was able to come in, and we welcomed him with having to plan this massive trip. But if I remember correctly, you did use Peak Tours, I think, for that trip, and it was a successful.
Correct,
It was
yes.
one that lots of the music groups in the county do utilize. So that's what the itinerary is through. Again, is through the Peak Performance Tours. So this trip is a December 2019 trip, but they are seeking approval early enough so that students can start fundraising and start getting prepared for this, as well as the parent groups to help start fundraising. So I did send out the trip template, and then we also posted the itinerary. And so December 4th, the group would be leaving in the afternoon or towards the end of the school day. And they would miss school Thursday and Friday. It's the only days that they would miss. And they would really be performing and also receiving instruction at 3 of the 4 parks. The only one they're not getting to is Animal Kingdom, but the other 3 parks they're getting to. And so performing is involved in this, so it's a great opportunity for students. If there are any questions about this, I will let either Steve or Kevin answer for you. Any questions about that first one?
Yeah, I guess I'm. You want to go first? Jen?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so in regards to the transportation of instruments, and that's usually a sensitive point. So you're proposing multiple Penske trucks?
Podium, now could he go up to the podium, please?
If he's going to answer it, he may choose not to answer it.
Yeah, but I you know.
You're proposing multiple Penske trucks for this trip with internal drivers, or how do you see these trucks getting to Disney?
So when we went in 2017, we opted for the Penske truck rather than flying instruments down for multiple reasons. Number one, the danger of you lose the sight of them there, and also it saves $50 on each ticket to not check the baggage. When we went in 2017, we had the PMA helped rent the truck, and then we had 2 volunteer parents drive it down. There was, based on our repair budget that we have allotted for the instrumental department for the music school, that allotted for any damage that could occur, and also when we rented the truck, we had a rider on any damage that would happen should it be a result of the truck or an accident that the truck was involved in any way. But if it were something like traveling down there and we dropped a case off of the truck, that was covered by our district plan. But any accidents the truck would be involved in was under the Penske rider that we had while we rented it.
All right, so so you got, this is going to be multiple Penske trucks. You got 200 students, 200 plus students, luggage and instruments. You're not talking one Penske truck.
So, and to be completely honest, I can't recall exactly how much space was left in the truck when we went down with about, I think, when all was said and done, we had about 110
Right.
between parents and students that went
It
down.
was a smaller number.
The benefit of it is we don't have to bring percussion instruments except for the drumline equipment for the parade. The vibraphones and basses and everything that takes all that room up in the trucks that travels to and from all the football games, almost all of that doesn't come. And that's part of what helps with that. Realistically, it's not unlikely to think 2 trucks is what I would think would be most likely, considering we fit the entire marching band that was a little larger in 2017
Right.
in 1 truck between choir and orchestra, choir predominantly being luggage that can be stacked, and orchestra probably being treated with the same responsibilities as the band equipment. I would say we're realistically looking probably around 2 trucks.
Yeah.
Which would be-
Because that's what you kind of indicate here in the
Yes.
summary. It would be more than 1 truck.
Correct. And then we would shoot for the same, we had 2 parents drive down for the truck so they could caravan and go back and forth and not worry about one trying to drive all the way through and trade off. So we would estimate 4 parents that we would ask to volunteer to drive the 2 trucks down.
And in this number that you have here, the cost per student, roughly, and I know these are rough
Right.
numbers, so bear with me here. How many spots are allocated for chaperones slash teachers, et cetera, that are being paid by the students?
The way Peak will run theirs is regardless of the number of students that come, the 3 directors, Steve, Marissa, and myself will go for free to obviously chaperone the students, and then from there, any 15 participants in the trip that sign up, not just students, that allots a free staff space. So in the question of would any of that go towards, all of those paid for spots would be based on our staff employees. On the marching band staff, we have 7 members of district staff that are part of that. It would allot to them first, that we would use them as our primary chaperones, and then should parents decide to come on the trip, they would pay to go on the trip. And so let's say we don't use all of the free spaces, that money can be reallotted into the sum total of the trip to try and save the family some money prior to heading down there before their final payment is made.
Oh, no, I was curious, I'm glad to see that you have, the insurance.
Yes.
I don't know why in my mind I was thinking this was a springtime trip. But you do have the insurance and, the price of the trip, I wanted to point out, includes 3 meals on 2 of the days and 2 meals on the 3rd day, so I think that's good for the students that you've worked that into it. Oh, I do have a question about the security guards.
Yes.
So you have private nighttime hotel security, 2 guards. So does that relieve either the staff or any parents having to be awake throughout the night?
Yeah, yes, it does. So when we went down 2-3 years ago at this point, we would have, if there was any time in between that time frame when security was on staff, I had staff chaperones and parent chaperones in the hallways, the 2 hallways that we had, they were relieved by the security guards. And then in the morning, when I would wake up and we would head down to breakfast, the security guards would give me a list of anything, so-and-so came out, or so-and-so needed to see their mom or their parent, or needed to see a parent chaperone, and any log of any activity that happened in the hallway relative to our students, I received that next morning. And we always had staff members and parents there until they were there, and then immediately when they were done until breakfast time.
Okay.
I've used Peak several times with the choir, and that's one of the best things about Peak is they supply a security guard. Otherwise, as a director and as parents, we're in shifts. You've got the first 3 hours, and it really works out.
No, I'm glad that you have that, because I would rather that than, what's that?
It seems like a long day. You guys
Well,
get raised
right,
at
like, there's
6:30
no
in the morning,
way
like
that
9
you're
at night,
going
so to have
to
parents then up all night.
Function.
Well, it's
Yeah,
long
yeah.
for the parents, but for the kids,
Yeah.
they're ready at 11.
I'm glad that you have the
Two
security guards to
at
do that
night,
instead
which
of
is
you guys or parents.
Yeah, I don't know,
11 p.m. to
that's
5.
why we've always gone with peak. I have,
Yeah, okay.
with the security guards.
Well, then you can sleep.
I can.
And I just got one.
Like,
Well, I
could
know,
you
that's what I was
imagine not
thinking. How do
sleeping
you,
and then, because you were up for security, and then the next day they're doing everything they're doing, so I think.
Because I think in the past, had you, in the middle of the night, think that there were people, on previous trips that had to stay up, or, that wasn't,
I can't.
so that would be
I can't be using.
very undesirable, I would say.
Yes.
So if the security guards are
It's a
much
it's a
better.
benefit on our part after heading
Yeah.
through the parks all day,
Disney,
for sure.
right.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I got one last, I'm sorry. The trip insurance, you said, you know, Peak suggests an insurance fee of. Is that, when you say they suggested, that's the cost of the insurance for the trip per student?
Sorry, I'm trying to pop to.
Right in the emergency plans, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
And is that, are we telling the students that that's, I hate to use the word mandatory, but
It's obviously, it's under so the one other benefit to what Peak has changed in the past, when we've last did it, PMA paid Peak the balance. So what would happen is when we had these payment nights, we would go through the payment plans and then send a big lump sum to Peak. Now Peak deals directly with each family in terms of collecting money, which is nice because now we're
Okay.
not even.
so the money's not funneling through the school?
Correct.
Okay.
It goes, what used to happen is there used to be a $25, $30 charge fee to using your card. Now that's just built into the cost as it serves now. So what will happen is when we have our initial meeting, obviously the insurance isn't mandatory, but we'll explain
Just-
based on the time period of the year.
Make it
And
painfully clear, yeah.
Yes, with the weather as it is, it's a risk that you run. Now, I will say for Peak, I had, previous to being in Penridge, I was on a trip that a transportation department of the district we worked in thought we were leaving at 3 p.m. instead of 3 a.m. And then, long story short, we ended up getting to the airport 6 hours later after our flights. And the primary director that we were traveling with was on the phone with Peak, and they rerouted and got 4 separate flights, separated the staff on the flights, and got us there at no extra charge. So they will truly do anything and everything they can to get you down there. Obviously, if we're talking crazy weather or something like that, we can't get there, that's the risk that is running it, but that is why we will certainly make the insurance very, very clear that it's not a bad peace of mind.
I just have a quick question. This is not really that important, but the Disney meal cards that they're getting,
Yes.
is that Disney issued? Is Disney issuing them, or is that issued, is it something that you're issuing for them to use, or is it issued by Disney?
I believe it's issued by Disney, so when we get down there with the coach buses, we're met by a Peak travel agent.
Okay.
And every morning, he would give me a stack. And
Of the
as
cards?
Yes, and they have to be Disney issued because they have Mickey logos on them
Okay.
as I think about
So
it.
they can, are they compatible with, if the student wants to use the app, will the card work with the app? Because now they have the Disney on
I
Meals.
am
And you
not,
can get a lot of food for $15 if you
You
use
can.
the app.
you certainly can. I'm not 100% sure if it works with the app. When we were down there in 2017, they didn't have the app at that point.
Okay.
We just gave them the cards as they got off of the bus. And then the nice thing is, it's not like they expire at the end of the day. So there were some kids who, they were going on so many rides, so they would eat, and then we went to dinner together.
And then they could use
And then
them.
they save it, and they have
Oh, good.
$15 more the next day. So there were some kids that were going to
I guess-
nicer Italian restaurants for
Right.
$20 meals on the last day because they could.
Okay, good,
So.
good. And I know food to me is important for the kids. You're gonna be
Well,
hungry.
all day, I want them to be well
They're gonna
fed.
be hungry.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to add? Yeah.
If, you know, it were to be, if you couldn't go at this time, is there any, would you be able to organize another time, or would you not do it's just something I was thinking.
You
I
mean
know it would be
compared to the
difficult.
spring?
Ever?
Well, yeah, I mean, would you still try and go, do you think, or
I think
just kind of say, oh,
at least for the coming year, it would be very difficult for us to find time because part of the reason we chose the time that we did was we looked at the testing windows, we looked at where we're likely to have county band, district band, all-state band, the musical, and the spring gets, one of the reasons we wanted to travel with all three groups is because we're trying to work very hard for them to experience the music that each of them makes separately because we don't get a huge amount of exposure to each other. And it's a nice idea to be able to go down together, support each other in that, and experience that together. But with our schedules being so conflicting, it's very hard once you hit spring.
we'll just make vision boards.
Alright, so everybody's comfortable moving forward with this? Sounds good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. So this one we would like to then move
Can
to
you ask them
January.
to stay, so I can
board
ask
meeting
some
as a
questions?
Yep.
motion.
Okay, thank you.
She wanted to-
Oh. Alright, we're gonna jump back then to the Key Club convention.
Hello, everyone. Rachel Hoffman, nice to meet you.
So we did not talk yet about this trip as far as
Okay.
overview, but Rachel is here to answer any questions.
Yes.
And so this is a March 2019 trip, and there would be one school day missed for this one, Friday, March 29th. Any questions for this trip for Ms. Huffman?
Sorry, my computer decided to do a security stare back.
Did you want to talk a little bit about the last time the trip was run?
The last time it was run was not actually by me, it was Kara Gersh and Brooke Roush-Berge. I've been doing Key Club with Julie Grimshaw, one of the English teachers, for the past, I think this is our 4th year. I've taken students overnight twice before with FCCLA competitions, and one was in Seven Springs and one was in Lancaster. This one is basically for Key Club, it's what they call it DCON. It's basically the district convention from Pennsylvania. As we've gotten kind of more into Key Club and kind of, we're running it like a well-oiled machine, I'd like to think now. We have several officers, and we also have officers at large. Last year, 2 years ago, one of our students was the lieutenant governor for our district. So her mom and her went out to the conference on their own. Last year, we sent 3 students to kind of like a leadership conference, just at Camp Conrad Weiser. It was just in Wernersville. They were actually 3 of our exchange students that came to Penridge and joined Key Club and wanted to go to the ropes course. So there's a lot of leadership, public speaking, things like that. So this basically, I had 4 seniors that are some of our officers that approached us and said that they really wanted to go to DCON to check it out. They thought it would be really great. They have a ton of different things, icebreakers. They get to meet students from all over Pennsylvania that are also in Key Club. For Key Club, if you're not, if you don't really know much about it, it's our largest club at Penridge. We have almost 300 students that are members. The students all have to complete 50 hours minimum of volunteer work every school year, or the summer leading up to. It's basically from May 1st to April 30th. It's basically works with the Upper Bucks Kiwanis. It's affiliated with that, but we do tons of volunteering around the Percy area, the Penridge community. We try to do events here at the school, go to elementary schools. We did a lot of the shopping that the kids did, like the little kids, like the holiday shops. So a lot of the PTOs, PTUs, they call us a lot for things. So basically, we do all this volunteering, so they really wanted to meet other students. There's some leadership workshops, such as, Youth Serving Youth, which is our district project, public speaking, learning tips and tricks to improve your public speaking, service projects, Key Leader, Just a lot of, I think, and then there's some outside, people that are gonna do some, different things, different presentations about things that go on in the state of Pennsylvania. So, I just think it'll be a great opportunity for the students to meet, greet, learn about other things, and bring that all back to our, chapter here at Pembridge.
I have a question. How come it's only 4 to 6 students if you have like 300 kids in the club?
Just because we put it out there and we see how many people wanna do it, wanna go.
Do you have a minimum number of students that you're required to go in order to actually?
Not necessarily, we
So
got
if you had
4,
one?
and if we had 1, I probably wouldn't, just because costs.
Right.
I mean, right now I have 4 girls, so luckily they can share a room, so.
Is there
Well,
ever been a number that you can't go at a certain point? Because I'm just thinking, how come not more going if there's that many
I
activities?
think because we've never gone with them, so maybe this would be the start of it. I don't know how many, students, I wanna say Kara and, Brooke took maybe like 10 students. But I'm not really sure, that was, I think, like at least 5 years ago, 4 years ago, before I took over. But I mean, I would be open to it. I think it's kind of opening that door because you ask students if they're interested. As we all know, students are inundated with work, jobs outside of school, sports, extracurriculars. So for some students, this is also the same weekend as the DC trip with Mr. Bush. So I think that was a big thing that my 4 were like hemming and hawing, and I was like, do whatever you want to do, you know, like whichever sounds better. So they wanted to go to this instead.
So your total cost for the 4 plus the advisor would be 1080, is that correct? Or is there another total cost? 'Cause-
No, well, I'm not really sure. I tried to get the school van. They didn't tell me how much that would cost
Oh, I
because I
see.
couldn't until it's approved. Then I can request it, and then I can
gotcha.
find out.
Okay.
But the students are paying their own,
Right now we do have money, in the bank. We have about $2,500. We get, donations. We got a $500 donation from, a local church. And we've got some, we did a Yankee Candle fundraiser. We've got a couple more in the works for the students to kind of collect the money. We're trying our best to not have the students have to pay anything, but if it happens, you know, we said maybe like 50, could be 100, but we're hoping that we can try to contain all the costs.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So the Penrith, so how many are in the Key Club altogether approximately?
About almost 300.
Okay, so the funds that you have for Key Club would be for activities for all of the students?
True, yes, for all the students, we also use some of the funds to buy supplies to invite, elementary school students. We've done different things in the past, like, read for the record,
Okay.
and we've bought, done little, snacks and bought books so that we could donate the books.
Well, I just have a concern that you'll be using funds raised for an activity for only 4 to 6 students, when the funds should be, that's just.
I get what you're saying, but
Yeah,
I
you know
mean,
what I
we
mean.
put it out there for a good 3 months, like since the beginning of
Yeah.
school. If you're interested, let
Okay.
us know, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So, I guess I have a question, Dr. Price, how this works on the cost for the van includes a driver for the transportation department?
Correct.
And how does that, it says, but will be picked up by the Key Club, how does that cross-charging occur?
I'm the driver.
If you will.
I was gonna say, I haven't.
Well, okay, alright, I wasn't sure how we did that, I wasn't sure, cause I know when we went to the conference, we had to have a authorized driver.
And I'm sure your driver's license is on file and they have all the information.
Okay, alright, that's fine, you're fine now, okay. Fine.
I think it'll be a good thing for them. I hope
Good
more will
experience.
go.
That's what I'm hoping. I think
Yes,
once
better.
you kind of like grease the wheels and
Well,
you
they
get more
should,
kids and.
we have to encourage them to do leadership, and this would be, and it's pretty affordable even if they paid it themselves, so it's a good because all of those things that the kids get in the mail, my daughter just got one, it's $3,500. They could go and get, go to a leadership conference here for, $270, that would be a lot more affordable, and it's something that they can use later, so I hope they'll have a good time. let us know how they, you know, what they think of it.
I will indeed. Feel comfortable moving forward with this? All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and last up, we have the district calendar.
One of our favorite topics. So we were looking at this one last time. This is going through every possible stakeholder you could imagine. And the last thing we do want to do is also to post this on the website for community members to see between now and the board meeting. We do want to do that as well in case there's any question. I know there's not a lot that can be changed this stage in the game, but just any questions at all as far as how you develop the calendar, why start after Labor Day versus before, like that kind of stuff. So we'll answer all those questions as people have individual ones. But so the last time we saw this, there really wasn't much change. There was really two primary changes. One was the draft that you would have seen before had 4 early dismissal days built in, 1 each marking period. This has now been reduced to 2, and there was kind of some pros and cons to having dismissal days in there. And so we finally said, well, let's keep the 2 in there that are right around the conferences, because that's really what especially our elementary staff had asked for to help relieve kind of having some of those long days back to back. So that's the 2 that were left in. There are 2 different marking periods, and then we said, we'll see how this goes, and we could always increase to 4 if we need to in the future. It also minimize the loss of instructional hours by doing that. And then the other change was, since we added some extra holidays in there, such as December 23rd and also a second Jewish holiday, then you'll see 2 places where I underlined that offices would be open for district office, so on the and the buildings. On the 23rd of December and then on the 14th of February. 14th of February we picked because we didn't want to open the offices on King Day. Or one of those other holidays that, based on where they fell. And we certainly don't want to open on the Jewish holiday, and we're saying it's important to us to give students off. We also think it's important to give staff off. So it's a different day each day. So that's kind of, next year that'll look a little different because really, depending on how the holiday falls in December, may not be an issue every year. But for now, those 2 days will be open. It's kind of a wash then for the extra days. So with your support, we would like to move this as a